This is located right at the top of Mali, near the Todeni Mountains. And what it shows to me is double-lined, meaning either a canal of some sort or maybe a road. But I believe they were canals, and I believe that they were part of an ancient canal system throughout the Sahara Desert. With Jimmy from Bright Insight making a global connection using ancient megalithic structures throughout the world, we really ought to be looking at these canals that are in the Sahara Desert. Not just the ones that are near the Eye of Africa, but also these ancient lines that go everywhere. Crisscrossing. I mean, is this a line of mountain? Well, look at it. It's got two lines also. It's a double lined, filled with sand, maybe a canal. What I'm finding here is the complex of ancient canals going in this area right here, in the north end of Mali. There's the Eye of Africa, and then up here you've got all sorts of ancient lines, because I say ancient because they're underneath the sand dunes that are 1,000 feet tall. The ancient Lake Maghreb was about here. This one comes from Giorgio Sarantini's video about the misinterpretation of Plato's and the fact that the Eye of the Sahara does align with the previous land masses before the Great Flood filled this in with sand. It is a nice little rendition, and when we look at this we can see that this area here was a big huge plain. This map doesn't show Plato's level plain at all, so of course it doesn't fly with my whole Randall Carlson was wrong about where Atlantis was, because it couldn't have been here either. With this map, I just want to point out that there's an idea that the Pillars of Hercules entrance were originally right here. And it does coordinate with what Herodotus wrote. It coordinates with what Plato wrote. Was this an ancient shoreline? You're looking at the Richat structure. And not only do you have ancient shorelines going around the inside, but you have them going all along the north end of the mountain side, and that is a really tall mountain. The Taipei River used to run right along the Richat structure, along the northern escarpment of the entire mountain range that exists today. In fact, there is a shoreline and the residual signs of an ancient lake that even has dams built across it, probably as it was receding in height. But these shorelines are as high as 2,000 feet above sea level. Look at this gigantic arc found by an associate named Michel. Michel's arc is about 18 kilometers long, and it leads right up to a canal that goes around to the other side of the mountains. That canal is about 4 kilometers long, but it gets covered up with sand. You don't know where it goes. In addition to that, it could be the actual circular ditch that Plato described. It's actually that big. It's probably one of the most beautiful parts. This was an ancient lake right here. It's getting covered up by the sand coming from the Lake Maghreb. Down in the middle here, where this whole crater strike or impact, you can see it right there. Right next to it, there's an ancient canal that could be going across to that ancient lake on the north side, about 4.8 kilometers long. But look at it, it's right there. I mean, it's nice and straight. And here's another one, and there's the weird ancient canals that could have led to the ocean that go right through that mountaintop. You've got these really super long canals that are right on the top of the mountain. Where are they going? I think they're going to the other side, to the ocean. There was a lot of water up there. There was a shoreline up there with a supply of water. That's 20 kilometers long. But that's not the longest one. I mean, look at this thing. This thing goes directly perpendicular, and it goes across those mountains, and it's like 63 kilometers long. And then this one here, which I think is pretty incredible, that's like 74 kilometers long. I'm not sure if you can say that those aren't man-made canals at this point. One thing that the Richat structure does have that the theory of the middle of the Atlantic doesn't have is Plato's plain. Here you see a big area that could have been the southern plain. And whether or not you start here and put the eye in the middle, or you start at the eye and have a southern plain, as Plato described, you still see a lot of residual things in this whole area. They were about 400 kilometers one direction. I'm going to go a little more to about 600 kilometers in the perpendicular direction, and it created a perimeter of about 2,000 kilometers, maybe more. So when you take a look at this rectangle and you put it on top of your Azores Islands, or you put it on top of your underwater plateaus, you still don't see these ancient million-year striations coming from the mid-Atlantic ridge. There's no place that a southern plain could have collapsed into the ocean. That would have been 20 to 50,000 years old, whereas the striations you see under the Atlantic Ocean are millions of years old. So there's no way that they would just disappear on top of those. this interesting sub-Atlantic grid also doesn't meet the Plato requirements. Even Spain has a bit of a problem when it comes to being the location, not just because it's all mountains and there's no plain that's that big. Not possible, is it? It is also much more than that with Spain, with the fact that that belonged to Atlas's brother. If you check into what Plato wrote, the Cadiz was where Plato's brother was, and I think he was across from it, but maybe he was actually on it. Regardless, there's no concentric circles in there, we know, because that's Spain. We also know that Plato said that the Atlanteans went as far east as the Tyrrhenian Sea, and he actually mentioned Egypt. Maybe Herodotus' map is actually being quite conservative when you compare the Atlantis going all the way over to Egypt. That's a big difference. The Herodotus map was a little bit later. Plato mentions the Diver Islands as well as the island of Atlantis. These Diver Islands were located out in the open sea. So because he made reference to the Diver Islands and he also made reference to the Tyrrhenian Sea, I think that it's a little bit ridiculous not to think that this whole area wasn't part of the whole Atlantis or King Atlas or Poseidon family lot. The truth is now we understand that the Aztecs were also calling their gods Aztlan or Atlantis. That was 2,250 years ago. There's a great video called The History of Atlantis. I have to give him credit. One of the things that he points out is that the impassable barrier of mud statement that Plato made could mean, of course, to follow the shore. And where's the best place? Well, there is a big 30-kilometer mud bank that's been just off where the Taipei had exited, right there by Cape Timorous. Cape Timorous is just south of where the Taipei had exited. Cape Blanco is just north. The ancient Maghreb Sea fed the Taipei, another river. Over here, there were several rivers, and there's evidence of having several small lakes, not just one large one. It depended on which point in history you were talking about. Just like the Mississippi River, there are a lot of tributary rivers that will feed into it without hitting the ocean. Was it the feeding river Taipei right there? And if it was not here, it was at least somewhere in between both. But with tributary rivers feeding the ocean that was so close, I think there was plenty of chance to have rivers throughout this whole area. The Taipei was coming from this direction. And one of the things that you can still see under these sand striations are some type of ancient canal. There's some type of a dam going across. These ancient lines are still visible. What are they? These sand dunes are 1,000 feet higher. Now, I don't believe the Richat structure was a crater. If anything, it was some type of dome geology, right? There are millions of years. Or was it actually created by the kings, as Plato said? There was a comet meteor strike on the Richat structure. I've been listening to a lot of Randall Carlson, and he's been going over the writings of Plato. This is the Sebket el Guelb, to me, now considered a crater that has been flooded over and has been filled up with sand. It's about 2.2 kilometers wide, and the other way it's also 2.2. This is what the Dome of Richat currently looks like under a topographic map. en-us.topographic-map.com. And as you can see, the center ring of mountains, which are about 1,444 feet high, is missing one quadrant and has been replaced by almost a perfect circle. Now, we all know that there were a couple of different times when during the Younger Dryas we had to worry about comets broken apart hitting us. And according to Chris Tolworthy, the Atlanteans were specifically the Ibero-Mauritians, and they were located where the Richat structure is located. And I kind of have to agree with this theory that the Richat structure was part of this Atlantean culture. One of the things that Chris Tolworthy put forth was that the Tamanrasset, an ancient river that was as big as the Nile, was responsible for the separation of continents. Instead of being just Libya anymore, people would sail farther south and find that Atlantia, a jungle area, was there. I think this is really great, and it's pretty interesting to me because I had already discovered the Tamanrasset, but I didn't think of it. So I would check out his video if I were you. Here you see almost a perfect circle. You can see a perfect ridge, wouldn't it be more likely that this mountain ridge would still exist? But instead, we have this. As you can see, it's like somebody took a quarter of a pizza away from the Richat structure's dome island. And to me, that is a comet/meteor strike. And it's the same size as two other meteors in that area. Here you can see the Richat structure pretty up close. And it's kind of hard to tell where the mountains are. This is the cliff. This is the first ring on the outside. This is the second ring. We've got a third ring right here. Now, wouldn't this be more like a full ring? Why would a dome geography volcano create such an anomaly, especially when you have almost a perfect circle in there? It seems quite easy to me to conclude that that anomaly happened after the formation of the Richat structure. So when you ask yourself, what caused this? What caused a mountain ridge to just disappear? And look, you've even got possible entry ports for boats if that part here was filled with water. And it could have been, because this is 1,329 feet to 1,345 feet. And then the green areas is 1,400 feet. The yellow areas is 1,427. So you had a lot of room to move for as far as a body of water could have been around that last island right there. I just wanted to show you another circle that's a kilometer wide that I found kind of on the outskirts heading towards the same river area. Now, is it a strike? Well, you be the judge. It seems to me that it's kind of a little out of place following the striations of sand. It seems like it kind of got in the way of the normal lines that were moving across the desert towards the ocean. So you be the judge, but to me it looks like it's another almost perfect circle in there. I'm not against it being disproven, but it just was weird. I was looking at this, and I'm just going to close this. Notice it was a kilometer across right there. It just kind of stuck out, you know, when I see these, what I call flood basin, or, I mean, it's a kilometer long, but it's a place where water would gather, and kind of in the middle of a bunch of mountains, because when you get away from here, you can see it was headed towards the eye of the Sahara. I'll just move that around that way, and you can see more there. I was just kind of curious about this land from here to here and what it could have separated in terms of water passageways. This is a real mess, but when you get in here, you can get to that area that I showcased about how I think this was an ancient lake, and now it is filled with sand. In fact, there's a bunch of areas that could have been larger areas full of water. I'm going to be looking at this a little closer. This right here is another strike that someone pointed out to me that actually lines up with the Tenamore and the center of the Eye of the Sahara. It's right there. And if you go straight down, I lost it, but I call this the Eye of the Dragon right there. There it came back. And if you look at this very carefully, you can see the Eye of the Sahara sticking out right. Where is that? Oh, I got mixed up. Okay, let me go a little farther out. There it is right there. Now if you notice here, now this is a real stretch. A lot of people have been commenting that I don't have any scientific basis for my statements, and it's very much true. I invite you to check out some other channels. You know, I'm discovering as much as I am learning or passing on that knowledge that maybe it's knowledge, maybe it's just nothing. But the Tenamore crater is right here, and you've got almost a perfect line. So if that's true and Alaska was the previous North Pole, then maybe it was a string of pearls event. But I do believe they were pieces of a comet. And if not, then they were part of the draconoids. Okay, so anyways, I think my main point was made. Just wanted to get some content out there. 3 strikes in a row. And then another strike that I think I found right out there. There it is. You can see it right there. It's just kind of like a little pimple, right? And pimples that are perfect circles. I mean, it could have been something really small. It didn't have to be super big. But why would a circle show up there? Right at the edge of a mountain and where sand is. It looks to me like the sand was there first, but it got spread out. Maybe not. Maybe not. Who knows? I can't see it in real life if I 3D. Oh, I'm using the wrong one. So here we are back at Google Earth. Google Earth works a lot better. So you can see it there. I was looking at this. I was like, okay, so you've got sand, and which way the water was going, I assume, was over on the right. But you've got this mountain here that's barely high enough. I want to check my theory that this lake could hold water. So I was going into the topographical maps to check that, and then I saw that circle. So zooming out of the eye of the, I call that the eye of the dragon. Ask mud fossil. Okay, what happened to my eye? Oh, there it is. So if we check the theory out, we can see that this was 1,600 feet, and the green is 1,096. So yellow is 12. So 400 feet difference right away with the yellow, and then the green is another 600 feet. So it's definitely a higher mountain right there. Now the thing here is that this sand is getting to the lake area that I described, and that is actually way less than 1,000 feet high. So definitely a difference. The question is what was over here? So it's not very far, 1,000 feet. That's not very different from that. So maybe if it was a lake, it was still not very deep. Now the shoreline here is quite a difference, but those are cliffs. And there was a river coming through here, so I believe it was more of a river than a lake. We've got what I think are dual shorelines. If we move in there and look at those, starting about here. Now does that mean that that was a lake right here first, and then this was the second one, or the other way around? I think it was probably the top was first, and then later on the water level went down for a long period of time and created a second shoreline. And by the way, you might see a third shoreline way down there. If you think that's from the river, sorry, if you think that's from the wind, well, I don't think that wind creates lines like that. I guess it does if you look at the Sphinx. So are these lines then being layers of silt, layers of rock? It's not all sand, right? This is a mountain. Well, I guess that's a big question. I'd have to ask a geologist. This could have been the edge of a big river, but the way it looks doesn't look like a river side. It looks like a lakeside to me. You've got the ancient dam there going across for some function, probably when the water levels got low, probably not in the time of Atlantis. You've got this little road here. I've always looked at that one. That was one of the main things. I call that a canal. It still looks like a canal. It doesn't look like a dam. Maybe if I can get the topographical map on there, see if it'll show any differences. Maybe that is a dam. Maybe that's a dam. When you back out of here, you can see right here a very, very old, I mean, come on, when was the last time water came through here? Alluvial fan coming out from this direction. Was that also a river going someplace? You can kind of see, is that a road or a river going that direction? Over here, it looks like almost the line goes that way coming up here. Maybe it was a part of the major Tamanrasset River. Or maybe it was man-made, because look at the curve there. Why would it curve like that and just go directly over towards the concentric circles? Maybe the water was coming from that direction and that was the main power. So it was as curved as possible. Is that really man-made? Hard to believe. But it's quite a perfect curve, and then there's quite a straight line right there after that. And then the sand or the whatever happened here. You know, that's why I kept looking at the topographical map, because when I wanted to see the difference here, and that's where we were just looking, it seems like, yeah, once it got over the hill, it could go down on the other side. That's why I feel that was made like that, because this was a mountain going through. You have a mountain really high, 1,900 feet, going down to about 1,600 feet. And if you skip over to the other side, it's also kind of 1581, maybe 1519. So you've got quite a jump, and suddenly you got this weird type of cut through here. And why did that happen? Well, you had rivers here, so the rivers, but was that a man-made chunk of land right there? Highly doubtful they had that kind of technology. But could they cut into this existing land? Maybe. Was the sand there already? I don't think so. Jungle. So you had a different type of something going on, but a big difference. If a lake was around, that's a good spot for it, regardless of whether the sand was there or not, in my opinion. It's kind of a difference. Let's put it here and look at the color one more time. So that's 935. Over here is 1, 2, 3, almost 400 feet difference. Here it's more like 1, 2, still 200. That sand right there covers up land that I'd like to know the true height of. Of course, the sand is now practically rock. It's not, I wouldn't call it sand anymore. There's a lot of sand there, but I think that you've got a lot of hardened, probably limestone or something like that. Sandstone, at least. I don't know. I'm not a geologist, and I think I need to go back to school for this stuff. So that's the content for today. We could follow that going all the way over here. There was definitely a flood basin here and a couple of dams. So you've got a natural water direction, and it's not just a kilometer wide either. It's like 20 miles wide right there. Let's zoom in there and take a look. As I mentioned, I think that there was water going up to these mountains here. It's kind of, like I said, kind of a jump, huh? I mean, could water get up to 1,800 feet? Maybe I'm totally off. It just seems to me that water could reach that high at one point. Maybe that's after the flood. Maybe that's caused by floods. Maybe I'm totally wrong. But you definitely had some lakes. You even had a lake up there of some sort. It was kind of like a little area where water could collect. That's one spot up there. There's another spot that's really big up there that you could have collected water too. Moving along, you've got this area here. I don't think you have any signs of any dams. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Seems like they have the dam up at the top to collect the water right away, and it runs along the mountain to kind of collect everything that comes off the mountain for a great distance. So it's not really collecting river water, but it's runoff from the mountain as well. That one's not here, by the way. I don't see any dams here, but you can see them down below. It's way down there, because here's the eye, and this is all filled with sand, so there's not much room. You do get signs of riverways. You see the rivers very clearly. I mean, they're more like modern day creeks, and there's even water out there in these creeks. I can show you man-made techniques for gathering water that I don't know if somebody's taking advantage of this water or not. And I've been looking at the modern day photos, and there's a lot of green now out there. This is Google, so it's not as updated. It's a little bit more moist. I didn't really want to look at that. I'll go over and look at that one thing I found. Look, here's another circle. This has to be water that did this. I don't really see that just happening because the sand got blown by wind. I could be wrong. It's a little high. It's a little too high to be full and have water that high. I don't know what would have held it in. Unless it was pure flood times like this. I mean, that's like what happens with the Grand Canyon, right? Water runs through there and it tears through and takes the sand away. Of course, it had to have been 5,000 years ago, if not lots. I mean, nowadays people are saying the Grand Canyon and the other canyons were not just done over 1,000,000 years, that they were done in a faster period of time. Okay, there's one more thing I wanted to show you. Oh, I got kind of sidetracked over there. I guess I followed the wrong coast. Yeah, and see what it did was it took me practically through to the other side. So I always am curious if there was any type of a water function going through here to the other side. I mean, we're talking about just a short distance from here to here. That's 10 kilometers, 11 kilometers. And look, you can even see signs of some type of a weird canal right there. I mean, that looks more of a man-made straightness than it does natural. That looks like a man-made canal. Not just a river. So maybe there was a big, vast amount of water. And what was this? The plant that was moving the water? Not very far. And if it was covered with water, then it could have been, the sand could have been moved up on top of it. But I just kind of wanting to look over here at these dams. These are, I guess, more modern day structures. Obviously built when the water was way, way low, but still you can see some breaches. It's not like it's in the last 100 years. I mean, look at that. That looks like someone put a mountain out there. It's a 0.5 kilometer wide. Is that there naturally? No, that's definitely a man-made structure to dam water. It's going right across. The question is how far out did it go? Did it go under the sand? Is this so ancient it went under the sand? I've always looked at this line as a weird thing. Am I seeing an artifact in the photo? You see a line going across the mountain? This is impossible. It's got to be an artifact. Yeah, it's got to be an artifact. Sometimes you're not really sure what you're seeing here, and they disappear when you get up to it. Some kind of a weird line. Well, anyways, I'm not going to spend more time on that because that I can't tell. But now this dam here, and there's another one way down here, they're very clearly man-made dams. I'm getting slow reaction. That's Chinguetti right there. So this is really the tail end. So what I was looking at that I thought was pretty weird was over here. Yeah, I was out here looking at something and I thought, well, that's cool. They actually have water that they've gathered on top of these things. I got to go to 2D. I don't remember where it is anymore. I got lost. Oh, I'm totally turned around, aren't I? Guess it was right here. Ah, yeah, I'll never find it. I think it was like right out here. Ah. There we go, right there. Check that out. So you're going to find this interesting. And of course, I think this is more modern day. But the usage of sand to collect water, it's obviously still being done here. What do you see? You say, oh, those are just little wind. Those are done by wind, right? Well, yeah, I think the wind has made this shape. But initially, you can see failure. Why would there be this sand right there? How would it get up there? You can see it collected a little water right there. And this one isn't even correct. But each of the other ones make a nice little pool. A nice little water collection pool. You can see the water in it. And how big is that? Let's take a look at this one right here. Sure is seasonal. And by the way, there's a nice little area where water was collected here also. But were these things placed to collect water? It almost seems like it. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. Because the natural shape definitely shows that that was made by wind. But how did the sand get up there to begin with? Could you drink that water? Would you drink that water? Water is coming back to the Sahara. That's 100 meters. You could have a boat in that. Okay, that's it. You can see lots of water around here in this little mountainous area. So 6 kilometers. Sorry, that was 6 kilometers wide, that whole thing. Alrighty, that's it for now. Have a good day. I just wanted to give you a tour around the Richat structure, the Eye of the Sahara. You know, take a good look at the surrounding geology and geography, whatever. Now we can see that this area here was actually a river following and flowing, and there was a cut through here that would allow it to get over this large area of land to the other side and go down and feed the concentric circles, which also looked like they were pretty high up. I believe that this also could have been a coastline over here, but I think that coastline is higher than the middle, so that means that the middle had to have been higher. Do I believe that the middle could have been higher and washed away? Yeah, I do. I also think that there was some type of a strike here that took away the mountains. I mean, if this is dome geology, then these mountains would be equilibrial. They'd be equal. There would be a circle. But suddenly there's this big missing part where the mountains don't continue. That's not what a volcano would do. That's what a comet strike would do. That's 2 kilometers. Anyways, I've talked about that in my other videos. Please check them out and have a great day. Bye-bye.